Welcome back to Reliable Prepper. Today, we're diving into a critical topic that could truly be the difference between staying safe and being dangerously exposed during a crisis. Whether you're escaping from civil unrest, evading dangerous groups, or just need a place to hunker down and stay off the radar, knowing how to identify and set up safe houses and hideouts is a crucial survival skill. This information could be the key to protecting yourself and your loved ones in uncertain times. We're going to cover everything in this video, from how to pick the perfect location for a hideout to the supplies you'll need once you're there, and how to ensure your spot remains completely undetected by anyone who might be searching for you. So stick with me, because by the end of this video, you'll have the knowledge you need to create and maintain your own secure locations. But before we get into it, take a second to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and follow us on Facebook for more tips, strategies, and practical advice for prepping and survival. And don't forget, when you sign up for our free bi-weekly newsletter, you'll get an instant download of my latest ebook, Surviving Civil Unrest, A Complete Guide. It's packed with more useful strategies like the ones we'll be discussing today. Let's start with the basics. What exactly is a safe house or hideout, and why do you need one? At its core, a safe house is any temporary location that you can use to evade danger, get some rest, or regroup during a crisis situation. It doesn't need to be luxurious or even comfortable. Its main purpose is to keep you hidden and give you the time and space to think, plan, and recover. There are a few key roles that a safe house plays during an emergency. First, and most importantly, it serves as a sanctuary, a place where you can escape the chaos, even if it's just for a short period. This is especially critical if you're on the move or trying to evade potential threats like looters, criminal groups, or just panicked civilians. Sometimes all you need is a few hours to regroup and rest before continuing on your way. But a safe house also functions as a staging ground. If you're carrying supplies, you'll need a safe place to organize them. Or maybe you're planning to meet up with family members or allies before moving to a more permanent location. You should also think of your safe house as a temporary base of operations. In the middle of a crisis, it's unlikely you'll always be able to go home or reach your bug-out location right away. That's why having a well-prepared, well-hidden safe house is so important. It serves as a fallback option, somewhere you can stay until it's safe to continue moving or until you've come up with a better plan. Having a series of these locations along your bug-out route could mean the difference between a successful escape and being caught in the crossfire of a collapsing society. Now let's talk about how to find or identify potential safe house locations. This is where it gets interesting, because the best safe houses are often not the most obvious. In fact, the more discreet and hidden, the better. It's all about being invisible and unpredictable. One of the most important factors to consider when selecting a location is seclusion. You don't want your safe house to be visible from main roads or any heavily trafficked areas. The whole point is to stay off the radar, right? So, look for locations that are naturally well hidden or that you can camouflage easily. Dense forests, hills, and cliffs provide excellent natural barriers that can help hide your position from anyone passing by. The more you can blend into your surroundings, the safer you'll be. If you're in an urban environment, the strategy shifts slightly. Instead of relying on natural features for cover, you're going to want to look for abandoned buildings, old warehouses, basements, or even rooftops that aren't easily accessible. These are the kinds of places that people generally avoid or overlook because they seem too run down or unappealing. You want a place that doesn't draw attention, a location that blends into the decaying infrastructure of an urban environment. Another crucial factor to keep in mind is proximity to resources. While it's important to stay hidden, you also need to be practical. You'll want your safe house to be near water sources like a stream or river, or a place where you can easily forage for food if necessary. However, you have to balance that with security. You don't want to settle too close to places where people might congregate, like parks or large water sources, because those are likely to become hotspots for desperate people looking for resources. And here's an important tip. Whenever you're scouting potential safe houses, always visit the location at different times of day. A place that seems perfectly secluded and safe during the day might be a completely different story at night, and vice versa. The last thing you want is to settle down only to discover that your hideout is a popular hangout for local wildlife. Or worse, other people. All right, now that you know what to look for in a potential safe house, let's talk about the different types of safe houses and hideouts you can set up depending on your situation. There's no one-size-fits-all solution here. It really depends on where you are, what kind of environment you're in, and how long you plan to stay. If you're in the wilderness, natural shelters are often your best bet. Caves, dense forests, and rock formations can all provide excellent cover from both the elements and from prying eyes. Caves are especially useful because they offer natural protection from weather conditions, and with a little bit of effort, they can be made into a more permanent shelter. But be cautious about exploring too deep into caves. While they can provide excellent protection, they also pose a serious risk if you get trapped inside due to a collapse or flooding. In areas with heavy tree cover, dense forests can serve as excellent hideouts. If you can find a thick grove or thicket, you can essentially disappear from view within just a few feet of cover. When setting up in a forest, you might want to consider building a lean-to or a debris hut. A lean-to is one of the simplest shelters you can make. Just lean some large branches against a rock or tree and cover them with foliage. It's quick to set up, and while it might not be luxurious, it'll keep you dry and hidden in a pinch. In more urban or semi-urban settings, you have different options. Abandoned buildings, industrial complexes, and overgrown properties are all viable locations for safe houses. One of my personal favorites is old warehouses. These buildings are typically large, have multiple exits, and are often overlooked by people searching for shelter because they don't seem inviting. Plus, the multiple exits mean you can always have a quick way out if things go wrong. Hunting cabins or sheds are also excellent options, especially if you're in a more rural area. These are usually off the beaten path, far from main roads, and they tend to be stocked with basic tools during non-hunting seasons. With a little effort, you can secure these locations and make them a reliable temporary shelter. One trick that a lot of people don't consider is using cliffs or rock formations. In a wilderness setting, large rock formations can act as natural barriers against the wind, rain, and anyone who might be passing through. They can also provide excellent vantage points if you need to observe the surrounding area for potential threats. So, you've found the perfect location for your safe house. Now comes the critical step of securing the location. Securing your hideout is all about stealth, security, and making sure you minimize your chances of being detected by anyone nearby. The first thing you'll want to focus on is noise control. This is something that many people tend to overlook when they're stressed or in a hurry, but noise can be your biggest enemy in a survival situation. No matter how quiet you think you're being, sound carries a long way, especially at night when everything else is silent. Avoid unnecessary talking, muffled door creaks with soft materials, and make sure that any movement inside the safe house is deliberate and controlled. Next up is light discipline. This is especially critical if you're hiding out in a populated area. A flashlight can be seen from miles away in the dark, and that's the last thing you want if you're trying to stay hidden. If you absolutely need light, go for low-intensity red or green lights. These are much less visible in the dark. And if you're in an urban setting, make sure to block out any windows with dark fabric or boards to prevent light from escaping and giving away your position. Now, here's a hack I always recommend. Set up early warning systems around your safe house. You don't need anything fancy to do this. Just use basic materials like fishing line or thin string and attach them to makeshift alarms like empty cans, bells, or anything that makes noise when tripped. If you're in the wilderness, you can even break small sticks and lay them in concealed lines near your shelter. That way, if someone steps on them, you'll have a heads up before they get too close. Another important tip is to camouflage your shelter. This is especially important if you're using a natural or man-made structure in the wilderness. You can pile branches, leaves, and debris over your shelter to make it blend into the environment, making it nearly impossible for someone to spot you from a distance. In urban areas, it's a bit different. You'll want to use the surrounding debris to make the building look even more rundown or abandoned than it already is. Board up the windows, create piles of trash near the doors, anything that makes it look like no one has been inside for years. And lastly, keep a low profile. This means leaving no obvious signs of your presence. Don't leave trash, food wrappers, or footprints leading up to your hideout. If you're using an abandoned building, be careful not to disturb the dust or move things around too much. The goal is to make it look as if the place has been undisturbed for months, if not years. So we've got our safe house set up and secured. But let me ask you, what happens if you need to leave in a hurry? You might think you're set with your shelter, but in any real-world survival scenario, escape routes are just as critical as the safe house itself. A safe house is only as good as your ability to get in and out of it safely. Trust me, you don't want to be caught off guard if you suddenly need to leave, whether it's because of a threat approaching, dwindling resources, or a sudden change in the environment around you. One of the first things you need to do when planning your escape routes is to map out multiple options. I can't stress this enough. Never rely on just one way in or out. You have to expect that the main route you intended to use might be blocked, compromised, or dangerous when the time comes. So always have at least 2 or 3 alternative paths you can take. You should also vary these paths to cover different types of terrain. Think beyond just roads. Main roads and highways will get clogged up fast in an emergency situation. Not only will people be trying to flee, but these roads may also become choke points or areas of conflict. Law enforcement or military might block access, or they could be crawling with looters or other desperate individuals. Instead, use natural terrain. Look for rivers, forests, and mountain paths as your main routes for travel. These are less likely to be patrolled or crowded, and they offer natural cover. A forest trail might slow you down a bit, but it will also help you stay hidden. Rivers can be great natural highways. If you have a small inflatable raft, you can cover distance without leaving a trace. If the terrain allows, use elevation to your advantage. Mountainous or hilly areas give you a better view of the surroundings, and it's harder for someone to track you. But your escape route planning doesn't stop at just choosing a few paths. You have to think about other factors like the time of day and weather conditions. A path that seems perfect during the day could be a nightmare at night. Similarly, rain, snow, or flooding could make certain routes impassable, and you need to plan for these contingencies. Always have a backup plan, an alternate route that you know you can use if your primary path is blocked or too dangerous. And here's one of the best survival tips I can give you. Stage supply caches along your escape routes. This is a highly underrated strategy that can save your life if things go south. If you're traveling long distances between safe houses, you don't want to carry everything on your back. Bury small waterproof containers with essentials like water, high-energy food, basic medical supplies, and even extra ammo if you need it. These caches act as lifelines, so if your journey takes longer than expected or something goes wrong, you won't run out of the essentials. I suggest marking the locations discreetly. Use natural landmarks or pre-chosen points on your map. Speaking of maps, don't rely solely on technology. If the grid goes down, GPS or Google Maps won't do you much good. Instead, make a habit of taking note of visual markers along your route. This could be large trees, unique rock formations, or even man-made structures that help you navigate. These markers are especially important if you're on the move in a panic and don't have time to check your map. The key is to make sure you can find your way, even under stressful conditions. Now, setting up a safe house is one thing, but maintaining and rotating between multiple safe houses is an entirely different ballgame. The longer you stay in one place, the more likely it is someone will notice you, whether that's through accidental discovery or because someone's actively searching for you. This is why it's so crucial to rotate between different safe houses regularly. You don't want to give anyone enough time to track your patterns. My advice? Never stay in one place longer than a few days unless it's absolutely necessary. Even if your location seems perfect, the longer you're there, the more signs you'll leave behind. Footprints, food waste, or even just subtle changes in the environment that others might notice. The goal is to make sure no one knows how long you've been there or where you're going next. So, after a few days, move to your next location. Keep your movements unpredictable and avoid falling into any routines. When you do leave a safe house, make sure to clean up after yourself. I know this can feel like extra work when you're already tired, but trust me, it's worth it. Clean up any trash, cover your tracks, and fix any damages you might have caused during your stay. This makes it much harder for someone to tell you we're ever there. And always check the place before you leave. Make sure it's secure, and if possible, fortify the entry points a little more before moving on. That way, if you need to come back in the future, you know the place is still secure. Now here's a trick not everyone thinks of. Set up decoy shelters. This is a classic misdirection tactic that can buy you time if someone is searching for you. A decoy shelter doesn't need to be anything elaborate, just enough to look like someone's been staying there. It could be an abandoned tent with some trash left behind, or a basic structure that looks like it's been used recently. If someone stumbles across it, they might assume it's your main hideout and waste time investigating while you're long gone. Meanwhile, your real safe house remains hidden and secure. Remember, rotation is the key to staying one step ahead. You want to use your safe houses like puzzle pieces, fitting them together in a pattern that only you can follow. This keeps your movements unpredictable and makes it much harder for anyone to track or catch up to you. Keep this strategy in mind. Rotate, clean, fortify, and mislead. If you're not going it alone, there's real strength in forming networks of trusted individuals who can share safe house locations. While being a lone wolf has its advantages, having a group to rely on dramatically increases your survival chances. A network provides multiple fallback options, shared resources, and added security. Defending a location with more people becomes easier, and having others watch your back lightens the load. But forming a network comes with risks that need to be handled carefully. Trust is critical. You can't just share your safe house locations with anyone. You need people who won't compromise your safety, intentionally or accidentally. One slip-up, like sharing a location with the wrong person, can spell disaster. Only share safe house information with individuals you've vetted, people who will respect the rules. Make sure everyone knows when and how the safe houses can be used and understands the importance of maintaining them. Even in the best circumstances, it's essential to have backup plans. A safe house can be compromised by looters, natural disasters, or population shifts, so always keep alternative locations ready to fall back on. Communication within your network should be discreet and secure. Avoid discussing sensitive information in a way that others could overhear. Encrypted apps work well, but in grid-down situations, prearranged signals, hidden notes, or coded messages can help. Simple symbols or markings left in key spots can discreetly communicate whether a location is safe or compromised. Lastly, don't share every safe house location with your network. Give out only one or two at a time, keeping others reserved as personal backups. This limits the damage if someone in your group is compromised and ensures you always have a safe place to retreat to. That just about wraps up today's video on establishing and maintaining safe houses and hideouts during a crisis. Whether you're moving between locations, securing your hideout, or working within a network, these strategies will keep you safe, mobile, and ahead of any potential threats. Remember, preparation is key. Start planning your escape routes, securing your safe houses, and forming your trusted networks now, before a crisis hits. If you found this video helpful, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to Reliable Prepper, and follow us on Facebook for more prepping tips and survival strategies. And don't forget to sign up for my free bi-weekly newsletter, where you'll receive an instant download of my ebook, Surviving Civil Unrest, a complete guide. You won't want to miss the strategies packed in there. Stay safe, stay prepared, and I'll see you in the next video.